Hello out there in jazz land, in internet land, in YouTube land. I am the Jazz and Blues audiophile, and I would like to ask you a question. What is your favorite piano jazz trio group? Now, the jazz piano trio is one of the most popular formations in jazz. There have been several great pianists in jazz that decided to produce themselves in this kind of a formation. We just have to think here. I'm in Canada, so the first name that comes to mind is the great Oscar Peterson. But there was also Oliver Jones, who followed in the footsteps of Oscar, also from Montreal, one of his closest disciples. There's the great Hank Jones. There's the great Tommy Flanagan, Bobby Timmons, Ramsey Lewis, Les McCann, Ray Bryant, Ahmad Jamal, Teddy Wilson, Red Garland. I could go on and on and on and on and on. All these great pianists have their own trios, which are, of course, a bass player and a drummer, and themselves on the piano. And so there's so much variety, so much choice when you're looking in that particular style of jazz, the jazz piano trio style. Every pianist, of course, has his own very personal style, his own very personal way of expressing himself on the piano and with his fellow musicians. So it's up to really your personal taste. Which one is going to be your favorite will be a very personal choice. I want to talk today about one of my own personal all-time favorites, and a particular recording of this man at the piano in a trio setting, which I think is one of the greatest jazz trio piano recordings. That's what we're hearing in the background here. We're hearing part of that album. And who is on the piano? Well, it's the one and only, the great Edward Kennedy Ellington, the great Duke Ellington, once again, which I've talked about in the previous show, speaking about his 1956 Newport Jazz Festival appearance. But this time, I want to speak of an album that he recorded in 1961 for Columbia Records, along with Aaron Bell on bass and the great Sam Woodyard on the drums, both who were part of his, of course, big band, working with Duke Ellington in his big band at the time. But they decided to record in 1961 a trio album showcasing the great Duke Ellington on piano. Now, Duke did not like to put himself in the limelight, in the forefront, on the piano. He referred to himself all the time as, "I'm just the piano player in the band." But if Duke had been evaluated by critics or by jazz fans just for his capabilities at the piano, he would still have become a jazz legend, a great one of the jazz performers, one of the greats. Just on his piano playing alone, it would have been enough to make him one of the great names in jazz. But of course, we know that his orchestra was considered mainly his instrument. He liked to express his compositions, his creativity through his orchestra. He liked to feature his musicians also, and really put his musicians in the spotlight, put his musicians in the forefront, and give them some excellent material by which they could really come out with their talent at its full potential. And that was his great delight. I think that was one of the joys that Duke had with his big band and all that. But in 1961, he went into Columbia Studios and he agreed to do a trio piano session. And this is the album that came out. The great Duke Ellington with Aaron Bell on bass, Sam Woodyard on drums, and the album is Piano in the Foreground. And it's wonderful. I mean, just listen to that. That's his version of Body and Soul in the background. I mean, Duke, he was an artist. He was a great musical artist. You listen to his piano, and he's got this style which I would say his piano is filled with finesse. It's a style that's elegant, that's stylish, that's refined, that's suave, like the maestro himself. like Duke Ellington himself. You know, he was that kind of a guy. Just look at some clips on YouTube. Just look at his interviews. Look at him talking about music, talking about his career, talking about musicians, talking about life in general. You'll see this man is a refined man, a very, very sophisticated person, and very, very classy. And this is part of his charm, you know. He is playing as it's inspired. It's almost like you're hearing what a painter would do, you know, as he's brushing along on his canvas, you know, and painting and different colors and different shades and whatever. That's his style at the piano. That's Duke's style. He's like a painter, but at the piano. He's painting beautiful music. And he's got a delightful touch. He's creative. He's imaginative. In an absolutely beautiful way. It's the Duke Ellington way, the Duke Ellington style. And this is one of the finest albums I've ever heard of a jazz trio, piano jazz trio. It's absolutely, it's just, the word that would come to mind is grand. It sounds grand. I don't know what else to use as a word. I'm running out. The words fail me. I don't have enough words to express how beautiful I find his playing personally on this album. And on this album, if you buy, of course, this album in the LP vinyl version, if you're lucky enough to get your hands on the original one, you will get 11 tracks. But it was reissued around, I think it was 2004 by Columbia on compact disc. And if you buy the compact disc version, you get 7 additional pieces of music. 7 additional pieces where Duke plays his piano in a trio format. So I recommend buying the CD always, because there's most of the time you get a lot more for your money. And on this record, Duke plays only 4 jazz standards. All the other ones, the other pieces that he plays are his own personal compositions, and everything is good. There's not a piece on this album that I could say, oh, this one's less good as the other ones, or this one or that one. They're all of equivalent greatness, and it's an absolutely beautiful. It's a perfect album. The tracks on the album. Let me just read you the tracks that are included on the album. I Can't Get Started, Congo, Body and Soul, Blues for Jerry, Fontainebleau Forest, Summertime, It's Bad to Be Forgotten, 100 Dreams Ago, So, Searching and Pleading for Love, Springtime in Africa. That's the 11 main tracks that are on the vinyl LP. And then on the CD, the bonus tracks are Lotus Blossom, All the Things You Are, Take 1 and Take 2, and Piano Improvisation number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 7 additional tracks, but these 7 tracks are not actually from the same session. They're from other sessions that were recorded at other dates, but still featuring Duke in a trio format. So still absolutely beautiful, even if they're not part of this same session that was recorded in 1961. So this is really a beautiful album. I can't recommend it enough. It's grand. As I said, if you listen to just this version here of I Can't Get Started, just listen to the beginning of this. The Duke Ellington touch. I mean, to me, that's absolute beauty. It's wonderful. It's full of refinement, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful sound. Brings a smile to my face every time I hear that. So really, this makes one of my top 10 lists in jazz trio piano records. The maestro, the master composer, the legendary, the greatest name in jazz, Duke Ellington. This time, performing at the piano instead of with his orchestra. And I can't recommend this record enough. Again, on Columbia Records, certainly available at your local record store, probably possibly available, not necessarily certainly, because we know that sometimes the jazz sections at your local record stores are rather small, but available certainly online on the internet, either as a CD that you can order online or as a digital download format. I usually buy them in digital downloads. That's why I have to print out these kinds of these kinds of pictures when I want to show the cover of the album, because I don't actually have the cover art necessarily with the digital download. For me, the important thing is not the medium. The important thing is the music. So I don't mind not owning a physical copy of a CD or a vinyl recording. For me, that's secondary, very much secondary to actually owning the music. Having the music and be able to hear the music, which is the most beautiful thing. I mean, the most beautiful thing about music is the music itself. So anyway, this is my recommendation for a great, great jazz record. If you want something great that'll help you appreciate jazz, and this is fine for dining in the background or for dancing even. I mean, it's Duke Ellington just being absolutely wonderful at the piano. So this is it. This has been my little recommendation for a jazz trio piano album, one of the greatest in my opinion. And so what's your favorite? Here's my question. What's your favorite? As I asked in the beginning, let me know. Write me some comments. Tell me what your favorite jazz trio piano album is. And leave some comments down below, or subscribe to my channel if you like these little presentations I make of some of my favorite jazz records. Then don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel. Find the subscribe button on your page, on your YouTube page, because if you're subscribed to YouTube, if you're logged into YouTube, you can subscribe to my channel. And so hit the subscribe button. Don't hesitate. So that's it. That was my presentation for this time. So until next time, remember what I always say, jazz on. Talk to you later.